Sheriff Jack Harmon's radio crackled to life as the late October sun bled orange across the Montana sky. He'd been nursing the same cup of coffee for the past hour, reviewing incident reports at his desk in the Pine Creek Sheriff's Department, a converted 19th century schoolhouse that served the rural county of just under 15,000 residents. "Sheriff, you there?" The voice belonged to Deputy Mitch Collins, his tone tight with urgency. Jack reached for the radio. "Go ahead, Mitch." "Sir, we've got a missing person. 12-year-old girl, Emily Kendrick. Didn't come home from school. Parents have been searching for 3 hours before calling it in." Jack set his mug down, the coffee forgotten. "Location: the Kendrick place, out by Whitefish Lake. Mom says Emily usually takes the trail through the pine forest. Father's already combed the path twice. I'll be there in 15. Jack grabbed his jacket from the hook beside the door. In Pine Creek, missing children were rare. Everyone knew everyone, and the community looked out for its own. But the pine forest that separated the Kendrick property from the main road was dense, sprawling across nearly 5 miles of increasingly rugged terrain. The drive out to Whitefish Lake took Jack along winding roads that hugged the mountainside. His headlights cut through the growing darkness as dusk settled firmly into night. The temperature dropped rapidly as it always did in the mountains, and he could see his breath fogging in the cab of his truck. The Kendrick home was a modern A-frame nestled among towering pines, its large windows normally warm and inviting. Tonight, they blazed with every light in the house turned on, a beacon for a child who hadn't returned. Robert Kendrick met Jack at the driveway, his face haggard with worry. A former park ranger, Robert had moved his family from Seattle 3 years ago, seeking the quiet of Montana after a workplace injury left him with a permanent limp. "Sheriff," he nodded, extending a hand that trembled slightly. "Thanks for coming out personally." "Tell me what happened, Robert," Jack said, falling into step beside the man as they walked toward the house. "Emily always walks home through the trail. It's just over a mile. Been doing it since we moved here." Robert's voice cracked. "She knows the rules. Home before dark. Stick to the path. She's never been late, not once." Inside, Diana Kendrick sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug of untouched tea. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry, as if she'd moved beyond tears into something more terrible, the quiet desperation of a mother facing her worst fear. "I called all her friends," Diana said without preamble. "No one's seen her since the final bell. Her teacher said she left school alone, same as always." Jack nodded, pulling out his notebook. "Did she have her phone?" "Yes, but it's going straight to voicemail," Robert said. "We tried tracking it, but the location services are offline." "Anything unusual lately? Arguments at home? Problems at school? New friends?" Diana shook her head. She's been excited about her science project, something with soil samples from different parts of the forest. She's been collecting them all week. Jack looked up sharply. "She's been going into the forest for samples? Beyond the trail?" Robert frowned. "She knows not to stray." "But if she needed different soil types," Jack interrupted, "she might have ventured further in." Outside, cars began pulling up, volunteers from town, headlights sweeping across the front windows. Pine Creek took care of its own, and word traveled fast. Deputy Collins arrived with thermal imaging equipment borrowed from the Forestry Service. "We've got about 20 volunteers ready to go, Sheriff. I've organized them into search parties." Jack nodded. "We'll need to move quickly. Temperature's dropping, and if she's off the main path." He didn't finish the sentence. They all knew what could happen to a child alone in the wilderness after dark. The dense pine forest harbored steep ravines, hidden sinkholes, and occasionally, wildlife that wouldn't take kindly to being surprised. As Jack stepped onto the porch to address the gathering search party, he scanned the tree-line where the forest began. The pines stood like sentinels, their shadows growing longer as night fully claimed the sky. Somewhere in that darkness was a 12-year-old girl who should be home, safe in bed. "We search until we find her," he told the assembled faces, their breath forming clouds in the cold night air. No exceptions. What none of them knew was that finding Emily Kendrick would uncover secrets buried in Pine Creek for decades, and that by morning, nothing in their quiet town would ever be the same again. The beams of flashlights cut through the darkness like searching fingers as the volunteers spread out through the forest. Jack partnered with Robert, following the main trail that Emily would have taken home from school. The pine needles underfoot muffled their steps, creating an eerie silence broken only by occasional calls of Emily that echoed unanswered among the trees. She wouldn't have gone far from the path, Robert insisted, his limp more pronounced as they navigated the uneven ground. We've talked about forest safety since she was little. She knows better. Jack nodded, but something nagged at him. These soil samples she was collecting, was this an assigned project or her idea? Robert paused. Her idea, I think. Her science teacher encourages independent research. And she didn't mention any specific locations she was interested in? Any areas that might have, I don't know, different characteristics? Not that Robert stopped abruptly. Wait, she did ask about the old quarry last week. Wanted to know if the soil there would be different because of the mining operations. Jack felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October night. The Blackwater Quarry? That's been closed for 30 years, Robert. It's dangerous, unstable ground, old equipment. It's county property now, technically off-limits. I told her that, Robert said, his voice rising slightly. I specifically told her to stay away from there. Jack unclipped his radio. Mitch, you copy? The radio crackled. Go ahead, Sheriff. Redirect a team to the old Blackwater Quarry and call in the technical rescue unit from Kalispell. If she's in the quarry, we may need rope equipment. On it. You heading there now? Affirmative. And Mitch, step carefully around that place. Ground's not stable. Jack and Robert altered their course, heading northeast, where the forest eventually gave way to the abandoned quarry. The site had been a source of limestone until the late 1980s, when an accident killed 2 workers, and environmental concerns shuttered the operation. Now it sat like an open wound in the landscape, a massive pit with crumbling edges, partially filled with water that gleamed black in the darkness. As they approached the quarry's edge, Jack held up a hand, signaling Robert to stop. Stay back from the rim. Let's follow it around to the access road. They skirted the edge until they reached the overgrown road that once allowed trucks to enter and exit the quarry. The chain that should have blocked the entrance had been cut, the ends showing fresh marks. Someone's been here recently, Jack observed, bending to examine the chain. Professional cut, not something a kid would do with bolt cutters. Robert pushed past him, his parental fear overriding caution. Emily, he shouted, his voice bouncing off the quarry walls. Jack followed, sweeping his flashlight across the scene. The access road wound down into the quarry, past rusting equipment and crumbling outbuildings. About halfway down, something reflected the beam of his light, something that didn't belong among the industrial ruins. There, he pointed. Is that a backpack? They scrambled down the slope, Robert nearly falling in his haste. The backpack was indeed Emily's, purple with astronomy patches sewn onto the front pocket. Beside it lay a small notebook, open to a page with neat handwriting detailing soil pH levels from different locations. She was here, Robert whispered, clutching the backpack. Why would she come here after I expressly forbade it? Jack didn't answer, his attention caught by something else. Tire tracks, fresh in the soft dirt, leading further into the quarry. Not from a car or truck, but the distinctive pattern of ATV tires. She didn't come alone, he said quietly. Or someone else was here when she arrived. Before Robert could respond, Jack's radio crackled again. Sheriff, this is Deputy Rodriguez at the north end of the quarry. We found something you need to see. 5 minutes later, Jack stared at what Deputy Rodriguez had discovered. A small collection of items arranged with deliberate care on a flat rock. Emily's phone, her jacket, and a small glass vial containing what appeared to be soil samples. Next to these items was something that made Jack's blood run cold. A hunting rifle, the barrel warped and partially melted, as if it had been subjected to extreme heat. What the hell could do that to a rifle? Rodriguez whispered. Jack shook his head, keeping Robert back from the scene. Get forensics out here now, he ordered, and expand the search perimeter. This just became something more than a missing person case. As more searchers arrived at the quarry, none of them noticed the solitary figure watching from the trailing above, or the fact that the temperature around the melted rifle was significantly higher than the surrounding air, despite the cold October night. By dawn, the search for Emily Kendrick had transformed the sleepy town of Pine Creek. State police cruisers lined Main Street, and news vans from Kalispell and even Missoula had arrived, setting up equipment outside the sheriff's department. Inside, Jack stood before a hastily assembled incident board, Emily's school photo at its center. "What do we know for certain?" he asked a room of bleary-eyed deputies and state police officers. Deputy Collins stepped forward. Emily Kendrick, age 12, was last seen leaving Pine Creek Middle School at 3:15 yesterday afternoon. Based on the evidence at the quarry, we believe she went there directly instead of heading home. The rifle found at the scene is registered to Thomas Blackwater, reported stolen from his truck 3 days ago. "Any connection between Blackwater and the Kendricks?" asked State Police Lieutenant Reeves, a sharp-featured woman who'd arrived with the forensics team. Jack shook his head. "Not that we've found. Blackwater's family used to own the quarry land before selling to the mining company in the 60s. He's lived on the outskirts of town his whole life, keeps to himself mostly. Hunter, trapper, sells firewood in the winter." "And the condition of the rifle?" Lieutenant Reeves pressed. Jack exchanged glances with Collins. "Lab's still analyzing it. Initial assessment suggests it was subjected to temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit." "That's not possible." One of the state officers objected. "There was no fire reported, no scorching on the surrounding area. Just the rifle, melted like it had been in a furnace." "I know what I saw," Jack said firmly. "For now, let's focus on finding Emily. We've got teams covering a 5-mile radius from the quarry, helicopter support arriving within the hour, and dive teams prepping to search the quarry pool." As the meeting broke up, Jack pulled Collins aside. "I need you to dig into the quarry's history. That accident in '89 that shut the place down. I want everything we have on it." "You think it's connected to Emily?" "I don't know. But there's something about that place that doesn't sit right." Jack left the station and drove to Pine Creek's only diner, the Rusty Nail, where locals gathered to exchange information and gossip. As he entered, conversations hushed momentarily before resuming at a lower volume. He spotted Diana Kendrick sitting alone in a booth, untouched coffee before her. "Any news?" she asked as he slid into the seat across from her. "Nothing concrete yet," he admitted. "Diana, I need to ask you something. Did Emily ever mention meeting anyone at the quarry? Another student, maybe, or someone new in town?" Diana's hands trembled slightly. "She's been different lately. Quieter. I thought it was just becoming a teenager, you know? But last week, I found her looking at old newspaper articles about Pine Creek. When I asked what she was researching, she said disappearances. Said she was curious about missing persons cases in rural areas." Jack felt that same chill he'd experienced in the forest. "Did she mention any cases specifically?" "No, but—" Diana hesitated. 2 days ago, she asked if I remembered a girl who went missing here in 1989. I told her I wouldn't. We only moved here 3 years ago. She seemed disappointed, said something about patterns and cycles." The bell above the diner door jingled as Thomas Blackwater entered. In his 60s, with weathered skin and eyes like flint, Blackwater rarely came into town except for supplies. Conversations died completely as he approached Jack's table. "Heard you found my rifle, Sheriff," he said without preamble. "And that there's a girl missing." Jack gestured to the empty seat beside him. "Mr. Blackwater, yes, we recovered your rifle at the quarry last night, in an unusual condition." Blackwater remained standing. Nothing unusual about that place. It takes things. Always has. His gaze shifted to Diana. "Your girl. She been asking questions about the quarry? About what happened there?" Diana stared at him. "How would you know that?" "Small town," Blackwater shrugged. "Kids talk. Mine works at the library. Said your daughter's been reading up on local history, specifically about Lily Carver." Jack straightened. "Lily Carver? The girl who disappeared during the quarry accident?" "That's the official story," Blackwater said, his voice dropping. That she fell into the machinery during the cave-in. That her body was never recovered. He leaned closer. But some of us know better. Some of us were there that day. What are you saying? Diana whispered. I'm saying history repeats itself in Pine Creek. Every 30 years, like clockwork. And your girl figured that out. Blackwater turned to leave, then paused. Sheriff, when you find her, if you find her, she won't be the same. They never are. As Blackwater walked out, Jack caught Diana's terrified gaze. He's just a local eccentric, he assured her, though the certainty in Blackwater's voice had unsettled him. But I think I need to talk to some of the older residents about that quarry accident. There might be details that never made the official report. What Jack didn't tell Diana was that Lily Carver had been exactly 12 years old when she vanished, the same age as Emily. Jack found former quarry foreman Harold Decker at the Pine Creek Retirement Community, a cluster of modest cabins on the edge of town. At 78, Decker's body had grown frail, but his mind remained sharp. He sat on his porch, whittling a piece of pine into what appeared to be a small bird. Figured you'd come around eventually, Decker said as Jack approached. Heard about the Kendrick girl on the radio, and about what they found with her things. Jack settled into the chair beside him. You were the site manager when Lily Carver disappeared in '89. I was. Decker set his carving aside. Official report says she wandered onto the property after hours, got caught in the cave-in that killed Joel Prescott and Mike Whalen. That's what the company wanted everyone to believe. And the truth? Decker's weathered hands trembled slightly. The truth is, she was there because her father worked the night shift. Ray Carver, maintenance supervisor. Good man. The cave-in wasn't an accident, Sheriff. We'd been reporting structural issues for months, but the company kept pushing for more production. That doesn't explain what happened to Lily, Jack pressed. No, it doesn't. Decker's voice dropped. After the collapse, when we were searching for survivors, I found something in Ray's maintenance shed. A journal Lily had been keeping. She'd been visiting the quarry regularly, documenting changes in the soil. Said it was waking up. That's the phrase she used. Jack leaned forward. Changes like what? Temperature fluctuations. Mineral compositions that shifted overnight. And she wrote about voices coming from the deepest part of the excavation. Decker met Jack's gaze. I thought it was just a child's imagination, until I found her soil samples and tested them myself. What did you find? Elements that shouldn't exist in nature. Combinations of minerals that reacted to certain stimuli. After the quarry closed, I kept researching. Found records going back to the original indigenous people of this region. They called this area the Breathing Land and considered it sacred, forbidden territory. Jack's skepticism must have shown on his face, because Decker sighed heavily. I know how it sounds, but I also know what I saw that night. Lily's flashlight, moving deep in the quarry, where no one should have been able to go after the collapse. And when we tried to reach her, he shook his head. The ground just took her, swallowed her whole. The search and rescue team said it was quicksand from a broken underground spring, but I've seen quicksand. This was different. It was deliberate. Jack's phone buzzed. A text from Collins. Found newspaper archives on Lily Carver. Not the first disappearance at that location. Similar case in 1959. Boy named Peter Blackwater. The name hit Jack like a physical blow. Blackwater, as in Thomas Blackwater. Decker nodded slowly. His younger brother. Disappeared when they were kids, playing on the family property, before it was even a quarry. Thomas was there when it happened. Never spoke about it, but he's carried that guilt his whole life. Jack stood abruptly. I need to find Blackwater. Now. He'll be at the quarry, Decker called as Jack hurried down the steps. Every year on the anniversary of Peter's disappearance, October 25th, he keeps vigil at the North Ridge. October 25th. Today, Jack found Thomas Blackwater exactly where Decker had predicted, sitting on a flat rock overlooking the quarry, a thermos of coffee beside him. The old man didn't seem surprised when Jack approached. Took you long enough to put it together, Blackwater said, not looking up. 3 disappearances, 30 years apart, same location, Jack said. And you're connected to all of them. Your brother in 59. You were present for Lily Carver in 89. And now your rifle shows up with Emily Kendrick's belongings. I didn't take her, if that's what you're thinking, Blackwater replied. I've been trying to protect her. When I realized she was researching the pattern, I started keeping watch. But I was too late. Too late for what? What do you know about where she is? Blackwater finally turned to face him. The land underneath this mountain is different. The indigenous people knew it. My family learned it the hard way. Every 30 years, it hungers. That's not an explanation, Mr. Blackwater. No, it's not. But I can show you something that might be. Blackwater stood, retrieving a worn leather journal from his jacket. This was my father's. After Peter disappeared, he spent years studying this place, documenting the changes, the cycles. When Lily vanished, I continued his work. Jack took the journal, flipping through pages of meticulous notes, soil analyses, temperature readings, and maps marked with anomalies. The rifle melted because I tried to fire it into the fissure where Emily disappeared, Blackwater explained. The heat coming from below was not natural. But there's a way to find her. There's always been a way. I just never had the courage to try it with Peter or Lily. What way? Jack demanded. The passages beneath the quarry connect to an extensive cave system. The indigenous legends speak of chambers where the barriers between. Blackwater hesitated, where reality thins. If Emily is still alive, that's where she'll be. But we need to go now. The window is closing. Window. The cycle lasts 3 days, Sheriff. After that, she'll be gone. Just like the others. Diana and Robert Kendrick stood at the quarry's edge, watching as Jack checked his equipment one final time. The technical rescue team from Kalispell had mapped out the cave entrance, discovered behind a collapsed section of the quarry wall. A narrow fissure that, according to Blackwater's journal, led to a larger chamber system below. I should be going with you, Robert insisted for the 3rd time. Your leg won't make it through the tight sections. Jack replied gently. And Emily will need you at full strength when we bring her back. Lieutenant Reeves approached, her expression making it clear she thought the entire operation was misguided. The state dive team found nothing in the quarry pool, Sheriff. And these caves aren't on any geological survey. They wouldn't be, Blackwater said, adjusting his own gear. Despite Jack's protests, the old man had insisted on joining the search. The mining company covered up their existence after they broke through during excavation in 58. Bad for business to admit you've compromised the structural integrity of an entire mountain. Jack finished securing his helmet light. We follow the mapping equipment. Any sign of instability, we turn back. Our priority is finding Emily and getting out safely. The plan was straightforward. Jack, Blackwater, and 2 members of the technical rescue team would enter the cave system. Deputy Collins would maintain communication from the surface through a specialized radio system designed for underground use. The rest of the search teams would continue combing the surrounding forest in case the cave theory proved fruitless. As they prepared to descend, Diana approached Jack, pressing something into his hand, a small bracelet of braided threads. Emily made this last summer. She'd wanted to have it. For luck. Jack nodded, tying it securely around his wrist before turning to the cave entrance. The descent began easily enough. The initial passage, while narrow, allowed them to move in single file with only occasional squeezes that required careful navigation. Their helmet lights illuminated walls that glistened with moisture, casting eerie shadows as they progressed deeper. The temperature's rising, observed Lisa Chun, one of the technical rescue specialists, checking her equipment. Should be getting colder as we descend, but it's at least 10 degrees warmer than the surface. Jack had noticed it too, a gradual but unmistakable warmth that seemed to pulse from somewhere ahead. The air had changed as well, carrying a faint metallic scent that reminded him of approaching thunderstorms. After nearly an hour of careful progress, they reached a junction where the passage split into 3 separate tunnels. Which way? Jack asked, turning to Blackwater. The old man consulted his father's journal, comparing the crude maps drawn decades ago to what they were seeing. The left passage. It follows a fault line that runs directly beneath the deepest part of the quarry. As they entered the left tunnel, the rocks beneath their feet began to shift subtly, not enough to cause alarm, but a constant, gentle vibration that felt almost like a heartbeat. "Movement ahead," called out Marcus Delgado, the second rescue specialist who was leading with the thermal imaging equipment. Approximately 50 meters forward, around that bend. Heat signature consistent with a human body. Jack's pulse quickened. "Emily? Emily Kendrick." His voice echoed through the passage, bouncing back distorted and strange. No verbal response came, but the thermal reading intensified. "Careful," Blackwater warned as they approached the bend. "This is where the passages open into the main chamber. It's different in there." Jack was about to ask what he meant when they rounded the corner, and words failed him entirely. The narrow tunnel abruptly gave way to an enormous cavern, easily the size of a football field, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above. But it wasn't the size that rendered them speechless. It was what filled the space. The chamber walls pulsed with veins of some luminescent material that cast everything in a pale, bluish glow. The floor sloped downward toward the center, where a pool of what appeared to be black liquid reflected the strange light from above. And beside this pool, sitting cross-legged on a flat stone as if waiting patiently, was Emily Kendrick. She turned as they entered, her face breaking into a smile that sent a chill through Jack despite the chamber's warmth. "You came," she said, her voice echoing strangely. "I knew someone would eventually." "Emily," Jack called, stepping forward cautiously. "Are you hurt? We've been searching for you." "I'm not hurt," she replied, standing slowly. "I'm different now. I understand things I didn't before." As she moved toward them, Jack noticed something alarming. Her shadow on the cave wall didn't match her movements. It seemed to lag behind, stretching and contracting independently. "What happened to you down here, Emily?" he asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. Her eyes, reflecting the blue luminescence of the chamber, met his. "I found them, Sheriff. The others who were taken. They've been waiting all this time." She gestured toward the black pool. "And now they want to come home." As if in response to her words, the surface of the pool began to ripple, and the chamber's pulse quickened beneath their feet. "Step away from the pool, Emily," Jack said, moving forward slowly, hand outstretched. "Your parents are waiting for you up above." Emily tilted her head, studying him with unsettling intensity. "They don't understand what's happening here. Nobody has, not for generations." She glanced at Blackwater. "Except him. He's always known, hasn't he?" Blackwater's face had gone ashen. "The pool, it's exactly as my father described it." He turned to Jack. "We need to leave. Now, before it's fully awakened." "Not without Emily," Jack insisted. "It's too late," Emily said, her voice overlapping with another, deeper tone that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. "They've already begun to return." The surface of the black pool bulged upward, forming a dome that stretched and distended like a membrane. The cavern's vibrations intensified, sending small cascades of rock tumbling from the walls. "Cave's becoming unstable," Marcus warned, checking his equipment. "We've got maybe 10 minutes before a potential collapse." Lisa had moved to Emily's side, performing a quick medical assessment. Pupils dilated, pulse elevated but steady. No obvious physical trauma, but she's in some kind of altered state. Possible hallucinations or psychosis induced by gas pockets in the cave. Jack wasn't convinced. The scientific explanation felt inadequate in the face of what they were witnessing. The pool's surface continued to shift and bulge, occasionally parting to reveal glimpses of something moving beneath, something that shouldn't exist in a subterranean pool. "Emily," he tried again, crouching to meet her eye level. "Whatever you think is happening here, whatever you've discovered, we can talk about it on the surface. But we need to leave now while we still can." For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or a brief resurgence of the 12-year-old girl who'd gone missing. "They showed me things, Sheriff. The history of this place. The real history." She glanced at the bracelet on his wrist, the one Diana had given him. "Mom gave you that, didn't she?" Jack nodded. She's terrified, Emily. They both are. Emily reached out, fingers brushing the braided threads. As she touched it, the strange dual quality of her voice faded, leaving only the child. I didn't mean to scare them. I just wanted to understand what was happening. The soil samples, the temperature changes, it all pointed to something beneath the quarry. What did you find? Jack asked, seizing on this moment of clarity. An ecosystem, completely isolated, evolving independently for millions of years. Her scientific explanation surprised him. The indigenous people knew about it, protected it. Then the mining came and broke through the barriers. And the disappearances? Your research into Lily Carver and Peter Blackwater. Emily's expression clouded. They're still here. Part of them. The ecosystem, it preserves things, changes them. She looked toward the pool, which had begun to settle, the surface smoothing out like oil. I can hear them sometimes. They want to go home, but they can't. Not completely. Not anymore. The cavern shuddered violently, sending a shower of rocks crashing down near the tunnel entrance. We're out of time, Marcus announced. This whole system is coming down. Jack made a split-second decision, lifting Emily into his arms despite her protests. We're leaving. Now. No, she struggled. You don't understand. If we leave now, the cycle continues. 30 more years, another child, it never ends. Blackwater stepped forward, placing a weathered hand on Emily's shoulder. She's right, Sheriff. I've spent my life researching this place, trying to understand what took my brother. The pattern only breaks if someone stays willingly. That's insane, Lisa objected. Sir, this child needs medical attention, not folklore. Another violent tremor shook the chamber, larger this time. The pool's surface began to churn and bubble. It's collapsing, Blackwater said, his voice suddenly calm. Just like in '89. Just like when Peter vanished. He looked at Emily with understanding. You came to break the cycle, didn't you? You figured it out from your research. Emily nodded, ceasing her struggles in Jack's arms. Someone has to stay. That's what the original inhabitants did, a voluntary guardian who maintained the boundary. When the settlers drove them away, the system became unstable. No one is staying behind, Jack said firmly. That's not happening. Another massive tremor sent them all staggering. The path to the tunnel was now partially blocked by fallen debris. Go, Blackwater said suddenly, pushing them toward the exit. Get her out. I'll stay. Thomas, Jack began. My brother has been waiting 66 years, Sheriff, the old man said, a strange peace settling over his features. It's time I joined him. This is what I've been preparing for my whole life. Before Jack could protest further, Blackwater turned and walked deliberately toward the pool, which had begun to calm at his approach. The cavern's violent shaking subsided to a gentle tremor. He's stabilizing it, Emily whispered. It recognizes him. Let's move now, Marcus urged, clearing the path to the tunnel. Jack hesitated only a moment longer, watching as Blackwater knelt beside the pool, reaching out to touch its surface with an expression of wonder. Then he turned and ran, carrying Emily through the narrowing passage as the world seemed to shift around them. The ascent was a blur of tight squeezes, crumbling passages, and the constant fear that the entire system would collapse before they reached the surface. When they finally emerged into the fading afternoon light, Robert and Diana Kendrick rushed forward with cries of relief, enfolding their daughter in desperate embraces. As medical personnel swarmed around Emily, Jack stood at the cave entrance, watching as it collapsed in on itself with a final, sighing rumble. 3 days later, he stood at his office window, staring at the incident board still displaying the case details. Emily's medical tests had shown nothing beyond mild dehydration and elevated stress hormones. The cave system, according to the Geological Survey team, had been a previously unmapped extension of known limestone formations, unusual but not unprecedented in the region. The official report would state that Emily Kendrick had become lost while collecting soil samples, found shelter in a cave during the night, and was rescued during a subsequent search. Thomas Blackwater, a local resident with historical knowledge of the area, had assisted in the search but was tragically lost when the unstable cave system collapsed. It was clean, logical, and entirely inadequate to explain what Jack had witnessed beneath the quarry, or why, since their return, the abnormal soil readings throughout the region had stabilized, or why Emily Kendrick sometimes stared into the distance with an expression of understanding beyond her years. The mysteries of Pine Creek would remain largely buried, like the quarry itself, which the county had finally approved for permanent sealing and restoration. But in the quiet hours of early morning, Jack sometimes found himself drawn to the site, standing at its edge as dawn broke over the pines, listening for whispers from below that no longer came. The cycle, it seemed, had finally been broken, but at a cost only partially understood, and with consequences that might never fully reveal themselves in his lifetime.